fall, but I can't lose it.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
To be the best, one must beat the best. This is the motto the Lionheart lives by race after race. Over the last 3 years, one man has beaten back all the challenges in front of him to call himself the undisputed Lionheart IndyCar Series champion. Not once, not twice, but 3 years in a row. Today we start the road to Auto Club Speedway once again with 39 drivers looking to dethrone the Lionheart IndyCar king, Adam Blocker. Hello and welcome to RaceBot TV and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit www.hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15. That's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. It's the start of a new era for the Lionheart Racing Series, and today we kick off the first of 3 series that will be featured over the course of 2021. We head to the Homestead Miami Speedway for the HyperX Miami 200 and the first round of the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by ButtKicker. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, and I'm delighted to be joined by Justin Prince for today's coverage to kick off a new era of Lionheart Racing live on RaceBot TV and ESTV. TV cameras are provided by RaceBot's own Tyler Maxson, and you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading over to Timing 71 to follow along with your favorite team and drivers. Let's dive straight into our pre-race show presented by ButtKicker. And Justin, it's a very long season, lots of twists and turns on the schedule before we'll crown a new champion, and a very interesting mix of road and oval courses.
Absolutely, you have your mix of challenging racetracks and new coming circuits like Long Beach Circuit for competitors. And don't forget about the traditional favorites and historical races, such as Michigan, such as Auto Club, and don't forget about Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's going to be a competitive series and a competitive season that's going to challenge the best of drivers. Several drivers have talked about needing to improve in one area or another. It's going to be important to improve in all of the various different racetracks throughout this campaign for a shot at being a champion.
And you can see here we also have the addition of a triple crown, which means we'll have 3 races on a weekend and extra race distances as well. And you know, Justin, when it comes to these longer races, it does mean you have to adapt your strategy. And when you look at a schedule like this, variance between different ovals. You start here at the 1.5 mile Homestead Miami. We'll finish it off at Auto Club, especially when it comes down to these ovals. It's going to be very interesting how these teams and these drivers choose to approach this season.
Especially with some of the changes to the car, including the new damage model that was considered by some to be a major shakeup potentially for races such as tonight. It's also going to be important for drivers to know their adjustments. We also have plenty newcomers. 10 plus rookies are set to take part this season in what's expected to be a competitive campaign. This entire season is going to be busy, and throughout those longer races, it's also going to be important to make sure you have your strategies dialed in, your preparation dialed in. And many teams, they've focused on preparation to make sure they start off on the right foot starting tonight.
And as a member of one of those teams, I won't divulge just how detailed those pre-race preparations have been, but we'll get to it throughout the entirety of today's broadcast. Let's get to, then, our series details presented by Minus 273. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable and made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit www.minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. And this is, Justin, the 8th season, the 8th year of the Lionheart Racing Series, but because in Season 1 we had 2 different series, the 9th season of competition, we're in the Dallara IR18, the brand new IndyCar that's available on the iRacing.com service, and we've got a custom fixed setup with in-car tools available for drivers to play around with.
That includes being able to adjust the weight jackers, which are going to be very critical throughout this season, especially on the ovals, to make sure you have the right balance together. But $8,800 in cash and prizes on the line. As mentioned, the Triple Crown, Indianapolis, Michigan, Auto Club. Everyone remembers what was a 5-wide run up to the front at one point your Auto Club race. Some big-time moments expected throughout that Triple Crown. And, of course, Adam Blocker looking to defend his crown once again as series champion. It's going to be difficult. He's mentioned the difficulties of balancing the real-life work aspects with the IndyCar schedule in real life to the virtual world. And don't forget about Adrenaline Motorsports Red, the defending team champions. They have a new face in Henry Bennett, joining the organization, the 5-time iRacing IndyCar Road Series champion, to add to their organization along with the Canadians. It's going to be interesting how they fare out on that side of the garage.
It will be indeed. You alluded to it. Adam Blocker, who has recently joined up with Ilmore. He finished his first full season as an IndyCar trackside engineer in the last 12 months. Heading back out then for 2021, he was a trackside engineer, the engine engineer for a certain former F1 driver at the Laguna Seca track just this past week. But he returns then to his home to compete here today. Let's talk a bit about this race as well, Justin, because this is now our traditional series opener. It wasn't when we started, and indeed the first race at Homestead had 2 different splits. But over the course of the years, it's proved itself to be a very interesting race. And as the start of every season, you get to see a number of rookies taking to the grid. And interestingly, you talk to one of these drivers, Andrew Kinsella, the only rookie to win on debut. He's one driver I'm watching out for today.
He's talked about how this is a track where it requires a combination of patience, strategy, and aggression. You need to be able to accept what the car is giving you and wait for what comes towards your direction. It's been talked about today could be a strategy race. For many contenders, keep in mind, they've had consistency here at this racetrack. Christopher, one of those. Second, 3 times here in the past. 2 different drivers have won here twice. Kinsella and Big Joe Hesser. Hesser, back in seasons 2 and 4. Keep in mind, it was a close finish here for Connor Harrington last season. It could be close again. Keep in mind that traffic could play a factor, in strategy expected to be the name of the game tonight.
Taking a look, by the way, at the series track records. They like to keep very detailed statistics. This is the holder of the 10th closest finish in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition. So one to watch out for as we come to the checkered flag after 134 laps of racing. Delighted to say hello to you for the first time. My name's Arjuna Kankipati alongside Justin Prince, and we'll take you through the entirety of this 22 race calendar. And Justin, it's a very long season. It starts in March, it goes all the way down in towards December. And you mentioned for someone like Adam Blocker, who's already thinking about the possibility of missing 4 of these race weekends, some pressure on him to start off this season in the best way possible.
He's already talked about with me earlier today, actually, trying to find various sims to be able to run at, including for the Real World Indianapolis 500 weekend. So it's going to be interesting how the balance is for him, but he's also one of the series' veterans. Some of his first laps, though, were taking place tonight here for practice in what's expected to be a competitive one. It's going to be tricky, though, this entire race for him and the rest of the field, I think, here, Arjuna, because this track is considered to be one where you're going to need to be patient, as talked about. But the weight jackers are also going to be important for the balance of the car to make sure you don't burn up those tires.
Yeah, and I was watching some of the practice races in the build-up to today's activities, and a couple of the drivers are struggling a little bit with those in-car tools, but checkered flag waves in practice. We'll roll it on over in towards qualifying. 5 minutes and 2 laps for drivers to set their fastest lap times. And Justin, we were talking about it before we came on air. At a race like this, at a track like this, it's going to be vital to keep yourself up there in the qualifying order.
Absolutely. Qualifying is considered to be extremely important because the track position as well as the effect on dirty air here at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's going to be very hard at times to pass, but if you stay up for track position the wrong time, you might find yourself behind the 8 ball here at this 1.5 mile circuit. It's going to be interesting how tonight fares here at Homestead Miami Speedway, Arjuna.
And I am super excited to get underway. We'll have almost 60 events in total live on RaceSpot TV. We'll return to the virtual Homestead Miami tomorrow to kick off the Lionheart Retro Series, but today focus on the Indy cars as qualifying begins. Solo car qualifying, which means don't really get the chance to watch all of the drivers working their way around the track, but we'll check in. There you can see Joshua Chin recently has joined up with a brand new team, Justin. This is one that I'm watching out for as they try and challenge Adrenaline Motorsports.
Private label team hype, a lot of excitement. They've been running in various different series throughout the past couple months or so, now bringing the organization to Lionheart with the backing of Ty Stouffer as well as some real-world drivers. So it's going to be interesting how the speed fares for him. Samuel Ryman, also a very quick driver. Keep an eye on the Sim Racing Merch Esports machines. Was talking with James Grahula among those drivers on that side of the garage as well, looking to improve some of their efforts over the past couple seasons. So this is going to be a very critical qualifying session to be able to set the tempo for 2021.
And 2 laps to work. You've got obviously use that lap 1 to build up speed. Adam Blocker carrying the number 1 once again across the line. As mentioned, first lap's turn today. Provisional pole, 25.003. Not sure how that's going to stack up. Let's check in with the aforementioned King of Chins as he works his way down through turn 4 to complete what will be his first qualifying lap time. We'll wait to see what the time is for the King of Chins. 19th provisionally, Justin, and this is where I was mentioning it. You build up your momentum here on the second lap.
It's going to be very critical to be able to build up as much speed as possible for the line as well, to be able to stick the bottom. We were talking about this, where it's important to be able to ride towards the bottom, especially in turn 4 here at this racetrack today. And a blistering quick time, a 24.963. That is not the pole time at the moment, though. A 24.944 from Brian Beard, who is known for being very quick in qualifying.
Very quick in qualifying indeed. He was quick in the build-up in the practice races. Here is, though, Sage Karam coming out of turn 4. Looks to have slowed down. I think he's just building his momentum up here. And the Dreyer and Reinbold driver who also competes for Coanda Simsport. We got to talk to him a week ago or so on the Racebot TV podcast. And I'm excited here, Justin, to see what Sage does. He signed a new deal with HyperX, the supporters of this series. He's now streaming with HyperX. I got to see him wearing the HyperX Cloud headset as well in the VCO Pro Sim just earlier today, and this will be an interesting battle. Once again, it's Blocker versus Karam. Interestingly, though, Sage Karam, he was the driver that Adam Blocker first engineered during an Indy 500. Indy GP.
Very interesting indeed, and he talked about where his expectations were to always win no matter what he races. He feels he's going to be strong on the road courses based in the past, but he said he wanted to be better this season on the ovals. The interesting thing is, he's teammates for this series with Damon Martinez this campaign, where they became close friends after racing in various different series across iRacing. They felt like it was a natural progression to stick together and be on the same team and to have a lot of fun and work well together for this campaign. But a top 10 for him so far.
And interestingly, looking down through the running order, was waiting for times to come in. You can see the 3 private label cars, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Impressive start then to their Lionheart campaign. But Henry Bennett, the rookie to this series, he's up into 7th. And second highest rookie behind Jason Brophy. There are some very strong rookies in this field, and this rookie championship, Justin, is really going to be one that we keep our eyes on throughout the entirety of these 22 races.
And you have some great rookies coming in, a mix of new drivers as talked about, but also some of the drivers from the Retro Series to keep an eye on, like Richie Hearn, like, for example, Reagan, for example, Fowler, and a couple other drivers. It's going to be interesting how some of them progress over to the modern IndyCar throughout this campaign, and it's going to be important for them to start off on the right foot tonight.
We are moments away then from going trackside to take a look at the starting grid for the first time this season. Qualifying comes to an end. Let's go trackside and take a look at your butt kicker starting grid. So it is Brian Beard who will be on pole position at 24.944. And there you go, private label team height debuts in this series. A lot of hype. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Brophy the rookie up on the outside of row 1. Got Ron Hacker in 5th. Tony Schowen, the highest of the Adrenaline Motorsports drivers, in 6th. And Henry Bennett, he'll line up in his 07 machine in 7th. Andrew Kinsella will line up in 8th. One of the few rookies to have won at this track before. Jay Brandt in 9th. George Anzaldo, your series organizer, will line up back in 10th, with Sage Karam in 11th on the inside of row 6. Joe Branch on his outside in the Coca-Cola machine, then Ryan Otis in 13th, Matt Taylor in 14th, Ken Hacker for Synergy Motorsports Blue will line up on the inside then in 15th position, with Stefan Larkamp on his outside. Indiana's own Christopher is lining up back in 17th with his teammate on his outside. The defending champion works then back from 18th. Chris Fowler in 19th. Samuel Ryman on the edge of the top 20, with the Canadian Brian Carey in 21st. Adam Fraser in 22nd. Matt Houston from Team Race First. We've seen him on a official race here on RaceSpot TV. Good to see him in Lionheart as well, alongside James Krahula. Jason Galvin in the Thumbs Up Cancer Down LPM machine lines up in 25th. Big Joe Hassert on the outside, a previous race winner on 2 different occasions here. Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 27th position, representing Necki Racing Team by himself. Dustin Wardlow on his outside, James Paulson in 29th, and Tyler Groff rounding out your top 30. Justin Weaver in 31st, Mike Rasmas in 32nd. Damon Martinez starts all the way back in 33rd, with Brian Greenlee next to him. Ricky Hardin in 35th, Lionel Callisto in 36th, the first car to not set a lap time. And you can see here other cars struggling. Scott Holmes, Mike Rigney, Aaron Morgan, Christopher Reagan, and then your previous real-life IndyCar driver, Richie Hurd, rookie in Lionheart IndyCar Series. He'll line up back in 41st position. So the cars begin to roll off then here just in a few moments' time. We've got a few onboard cameras to work our way through, and let's start by taking that onboard look with Sage Karam. He's got your HyperX onboard camera, and whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Andrew Kinsella has the butt kicker camera. What you see is what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
Ryan Otis in the number 95. He's got your Sim Experience onboard camera. Sim Experience, makers of the AccuForce Pro V2 direct drive steering system. For more information, visit www.simexperience.com.
Richie Hearn will carry the minus 273 on board. Minus 273 is the premier name and karting gloves. Visit minus273.biz.
So those are our 4 onboards, and of course we will have a plethora of other camera angles to take a look at throughout the entirety of today's action. A shout out to Tyler Maxson, working very, very hard throughout the week to get us his own custom camera pack for today's coverage. A fully in-house RaceSpot production. It'll be Brian Beard then that picks up the throttle. He'll bring us to the green flag as Barney the Flagman gets us going here in the HyperX Miami 200. Single file further back in your field, but challenge comes then. Brian Beard has to defend from rookie to the series Jason Brophy as the teammates stack up behind him, and 3 wide for 10th position. Henry Bennett in the middle of the sandwich, Sage Karam down on the inside, Jordan Zaldo on the outside. And as we get going here, Justin, incredible stuff. 2-3 wide, clean air, very important right now.
It's been talked about across the field that it's important to be able to single file that out and get that clean air. But early on, it was expected to be 2-3 wide, a lot of intense battling. But Tommy Miller is going to be very happy to see his team up towards the front already in this race. Already right away is Brophy has several drivers trying to get that outside line working.
And you see that in the Cup cars. What will happen about that high line here in the Dallara IR18? Sage Karam still down on the inside. Henry Bennett, one of our big losers, he's been shuffled back. Joe Branch down on the inside with his teammate ripping that high line. And you get a great indication there, Justin, of just how important clean air is. 2 wide further back in your pack, and then at the front, single file.
Many drivers have talked about how it can cause some handling issues with the dirty air if you get stuck in it as the race goes on. Hence why it's so important to be able to get track position. Adam Blocker among those drivers who didn't get a good qualifying run, 17th. It's going to be very difficult for him to cut his way to the field with how much they're slicing and dicing in front of him.
Highline Chris Stouffer still works in the chrome-colored machine. His teammate tucks up right behind him. And they've got one more of their teammates stacked up on the inside. Team battle's going to be very interesting to follow along with. And we should talk about this a bit, Justin, at this point in time. These team championships are organized in 3 cars. Oh, we've got a car into the wall. Who was that dropping down the timing screen? I think that's Ken Hacker, who's going very slow. More contacts made across the start-finish line. Hacker's up into the wall. Can we stay under green then, Justin?
It's going to be tough right now as he's slowing on down. I think the caution's going to come out, yes.
So first caution of today's action then, just a couple of laps into today's race, and it's Ken Hacker who unfortunately finds himself back down onto pit road. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first RaceSpot TV replay of today's action. Ken Hacker. You can see here, this is the subsequent part of the contact, Justin. I have a feeling maybe dirty air coming into effect here.
Yeah, drivers have talked about how you need to be smart with the lines to be able to run in the dirty air, but Ken Hacker ended up smacking the wall in 3 and 4, ran way too high. You can already tell he's struggling with some tightness a little bit at that end of the speedway. In 1 and 2, he was a bit more careful and comfortable. Keep in mind that is essentially an uphill section of the racetrack. It goes downhill here because of the grandstands that are on the front straightaway. But right here, just gets too high. That ends up breaking the tire. He ends up slowing down. Looks like he's going to be okay. But right here, the rest of the pack comes and he gets hit in the rear. And that breaks the rest of the suspension.
And I would assume as well that that's going to be terminal damage. Question now remains, Justin. Only 6 laps in. How many cars are going to come down onto pit road? Doesn't look like any of them. You can see the first... That's the bright yellow car, James Grahula. He's coming down. Simon Ryman following him. And then the flood of cars further back in your field.
Now, drivers have talked about the fuel windows projected were about 14 to 40 laps to try and either work their way backwards or try and work their way forwards, essentially, for this race tonight. 0.4 gallons burned per lap. So I think it's just to add some extra bit of fuel into the tank. You're towards the back. May as well top off right now. There is unlimited tire sets in this series.
That's a very good point as well. And the question that some of my teammates were discussing in the build-up to today's race was not when you take tires, but how many cautions we'll get and how many tire sets you will use. Because, of course, Justin, tire wear is a big factor in the NASCAR series when they come here. But in these cars with the speeds well in excess of 300 kilometers an hour, you really do abuse these tires across the 40-lap fuel window.
Yeah, many drivers were talking about as the tires wore out, especially that there was a big deal of understeer that drivers were having difficulty with, and especially with the aero in traffic, it was causing problems for those who either didn't lift or were not anticipating the potential push. You have to be able to anticipate that. The weight jacker is also going to be important to balance that, because if you overuse it, it has been talked about where it can burn up the right rear, and those who are over-aggressive with it can potentially spin out as a result of that. So it's going to be finding that balance of your adjustments and being able to balance that aero to make sure you're prepared for the various circumstances.
Left-hand side of the screen, you can follow along with the movers and shakers in today's race. So far, only minor movement up in the top 5. You can see further down in the field, there is a bit more movement, if you will. I do think that these restarts are going to be so crucial. Lights are off on the pace car, so we'll go back to green flag racing this time around. Just over about 8 or 9 cars coming down onto pit road, getting a fresh set of tires as well as a full tank of fuel. Included in that are Mike Rasmussen, James Grahula, Ricky Hardin, as well as a couple of rookies, Richie Hearn being the standout name there. At the tail of your field, then Samuel Ryman, who had some experience in a Legends car in the real world recently. Looks like he had a 19-second stop as well. Might have a little bit of damage that he had fixed there. We didn't see too many cars getting through that incident with contact, but maybe a couple of them getting some damage. Pace car down onto the safety of pit lane. Jason Brophy at the front of your field. His teammate Connor Harrington in second. And then Brian Beard looks to get swallowed by these private label machines. As very good jump then from the 3 team cars, Justin.
Perfect jump, if anything. Joshua Chin quickly making his way on by to move into third, and now the teammates get to control the pack. They talked about how they wanted to approach this series, and for them, a lot of preparation was put into this race tonight. We're seeing some of that preparation work into itself now.
On board with Andrew Kinsella, who of course has that butt kicker onboard look, and you can see his teammate in that high line. As the car blinks in front of them, Shawan will feed the dirty air to his teammate. And speaking of the 3 teammates out front, this is where Adrenaline Motorsport, as an organization that have really enjoyed success here in Lionheart, Justin, they have to work as a team. They have to get on past Brian Beard, and they have to get to work on the 3 cars out front.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the 3 cars out front, on top of things, actually worked a lot during the offseason in various different endurance events, so they built the chemistry as an organization to make sure they were ready for this campaign. But look at some of these battles towards the mid-pack. Things are getting very tight with several drivers trying to take advantage of some of the track position or get some of that track position.
Brian Carey will squeeze. I believe that was Stefan Larkham, and he'll hold on, but more dirty air in front of him as we take a look at the battles further back in the pack. Adam Blocker still stuck in 15th position. Sage Karam, his main championship rival last year, you can see in front of him the Adrenaline Motorsports teammates. The Canadian Andrew Kinsella finally down the inside, and series rookie Henry Bennett in the 07 looks to try and get to work as well. Ooh, Sage Karam is going to get chopped off there. That will allow Henry Bennett to come down the inside, Justin, and he'll scoop his way up into 7th position.
And Henry Bennett is an impressive driver to me because whenever I've seen him on the road course in any type of open wheel machine, he's usually one of your front runners, if not the favorite, win the race. It's going to be interesting to see how he fares on the oval tonight and fares with the various levels of draft in this type of series. He's done a very solid job so far, but he's been stuck where he started this race so far, especially with some of the back and forth with some of the slipstream.
To the outside he works. Shawin is now dropped down into 8th position. Meanwhile, battle on the edge of the top 10. Christopher works his way into the top 10. Jay Braun tries to fend off the challenge. Ryan Otis in behind, and Adam Blocker has worked his way up into 13th position. George Anzaldo has dropped down to 14th. I think that gives you just an indication here, Justin, of it can be very easy to lose positions. It can be very easy if you make that one right decision as well to gain a lot of positions as well.
As drivers have talked about, it's about playing the lines right, and that's going to be very critical to make sure you get the right line before the dirty air really settles in and makes it more difficult to be able to make passes. When you have the fresher tires, you can make moves fairly easier. It's just a matter of finding those right holes. Some drivers want to keep an eye on, you mentioned Otis, for example, someone you don't want to sleep on with this experience and championship prestige when it comes to the Retro Series. Someone that's a bit new to these IR18s is looking to get super comfortable in them, not currently in the most comfortable position of it, but right now is looking fairly solid, a +3 so far.
We get that onboard look from Sim Experience with Ryan Otis. Adam Blocker dives to the inside then. The car behind, that's Ron Hacker. We saw, obviously, Ken Hacker getting involved in that issue. Aaron Morgan doesn't seem to have taken to the green flag, so out of our 41 starters, 39 cars still remain. As we look off the rearward shot from Ryan Otis. As we cross the line, though, to complete lap number 18 here at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, it's Connor Harrington out front. He won this race 12 months ago, and Justin has got his teammates behind him to help him out. You can see the gap that they've started to form as well. Sage Karam has worked his way up into the top 5, battling with Andrew Kinsella, and these two cars are really holding each other up.
Yeah, they're losing a bit of time. In fact, right now they're nearly 2 seconds behind your race leader. And eventually, as a driver, you have to think, eventually you have to be able to try and stay in a line and almost work together to try and slipstream with one another. Right now, the pace difference is seeing them near identical with the leaders, but when you line up and work together, the times have gone to the 25.2s. When you're battling, they've dropped to the 25.4s and 5s.
And you want to know what the lap record here is, Justin? A 24.007. Oh, contact between Kinsella and Sage Karam. Caution's going to fly once again. And as I was looking down at my notes, something, of course, was bound to happen. Cars go scampering then as they try and work their way through the puff of smoke that's emerged. We'll go ahead and take a look at this RaceBot TV replay. More cars getting involved. George Anzaldo, as well as Brian Greenlee. And you can see there, Justin, not all the cars were able to slow down in time for this one.
Yeah, several drivers on the bottom of the racetrack on the apron actually collided and broke some of the wheel axles and some of their chassis. Hard hit for a couple of these competitors as a result of that contact. And it was Kinsella who said it himself, where you need to pick your moments to go for the move. If you pick right, you go for it quickly. If you pick wrong, it's going to be a long night. And guess what? It's going to be a rough start to the season here with this contact.
And Sage Karam, who's had a very fun start to the day by winning in the VCO Pro Sim Series, starts off his Lionheart IndyCar campaign then with a bit more struggle. Let's take a look at what happened to George Anzaldo and jump on the onboard here. Take a look at this replay, Justin. You can see caution's already flown, and as he tries to slow down, nowhere to go, and he strikes Sage Karam hard.
Just locked up the brakes, and it's so hard to be able to slow down in these cars quickly here because, well, if you hit the brakes too quickly, you either spin out or you immediately lock up the brakes. Several drivers were struggling on pit entry practice. You can see with several more competitors like Brian Greenlee, they get hit from behind with all the checkup effects here. Just not enough space for a couple of these drivers to get on by with all those cars scattered across the racing grove.
And while we were working our way through these replays, pit lane, a very busy place. There you can see cars behind the pace car. 3 cars have not come down onto pit road. Very bold call here. Brian Greenlee, one of them. Justin Weaver, Damon Martinez, the other 2 here. Interesting call, Justin, because we're halfway through the fuel run now. I would assume now would be a good opportunity to come and get some fresh tires, as Brian Greenlee's going to do now, also getting some damage repair.
I'm wondering if this is just, for these drivers, a track position gamble here, hoping that the race stays green and they get big track position. Because here's the thing. Both of these drivers have been stuck in around the teens and the 20s position-wise. And we're having a hard time getting through outside of Martinez, who was your biggest mover, to around 20th. If you get a run, say, of about 15 laps, you can gain some net positions. I think that's the thought process, where they're hoping that they get a short enough run where they draw several more people in. But if they get too long of a run, absolutely, they are completely off cycle, and could be interesting how it fares out.
There is a limited fuel tank in effect for Lionheart IndyCar Series races. That fuel limit, 85%, 15.8 gallons. Would have been a fairly simple 3-stop. Is Martinez coming down onto the lane this time? Appears as though he is. Justin Weaver might be staying out there. And indeed he is. So one car does the bold move, as Justin predicts. But I am very curious how this is going to go, because you've got those 3 team cars, the Jason Brophy, Harrington, and Chin contingent, ready to pounce. And as soon as Justin Weaver gets passed by those 3 cars, Justin, he's going to be right in the dirty air and now struggle even more on his tires.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough part, right, is being able to stay clean. So I think for him, you need to be very smart on where you put that car. And be careful here, because if you try and be too aggressive or over defensive, it absolutely can cause some problems. But have to say, Brophy, Harrington, and Chin have shown some great speed so far tonight. Keep in mind, when it comes to Harrington along with Chin, they combined for 5 wins and 4 pole positions last season. And don't forget, Brophy himself, a former iRacing Indy 500 top split winner. So this is a star-studded organization that Weaver's going to have to hold off this restart.
Lights are off on the pace car as well, so we'll go back to green flag racing this time around. Unfortunately, Andrew Kinsella, Sage Karam, getting mixed up in that most recent caution. It also appears as though Jay Brandt, George Anzaldo, and Matt Taylor getting caught out. Those cars stationary on pit road. 34 cars still circulating then at the front of your field. Justin Weaver, Jason Brophy, Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin, Brian Beard, the top 5. Christopher, Henry Bennett, Tony Schau, and Adam Blocker. 4 Adrenaline Motorsports drivers in 5th through 9th. They'll try and work their way up to challenge Jason Brophy and co. as we go back to green flag racing. And this time, a little bit more organized as the field streaks their way through here, Justin.
Yeah, we'll see how the speed fares, though, for these drivers. They line up right behind when it comes to these fresher tires, as well as, though, the heavier fuel. Look at that, though, in the heart of the pack. There were drivers trying to snake 2-3 wide down the back straightaway with some of these positions.
Joe Hassard in front of these guys. Joe Branch, Tyler Groff doing battle, and behind them as well, Luis Gonzalez.
Trouble, Martinez in the wall.
Martinez up into the wall then. Stay under green flag conditions. Brian Greenlee has got caught in this one as well. But I think, Justin, because they've gone down to the inside of the track, reset to pit lane, we're not going to have our 3rd caution of the day.
Yeah, in big-time trouble indeed for Martinez. He actually hit some of the tires, too, then ended up adding some more damage to the chassis for the road course here at Homestead Miami Speedway. So that's unfortunate for him and Brian Greenlee. Now, it's going to be trouble for them early on, and that was the risk they took by going towards the back. Martinez tried to take a 3. That's what led to the contact.
Get that RaceBot TV replay from the aerial look brought to us by ATVO graphical partners at RaceBot TV. Tries to split the difference. And just slight contact forces the yellow car up into the wall. That's going to be day done then for both of those drivers. Back to live pictures we go. Pick up the front of your field. 1/10 of a second separates Jason Brophy, Justin Weaver. Connor Harrington has slightly fallen off here, Justin, with the dirty air, and you can see Ryan Otis tries to work down to the inside of your defending series champion.
And that's always the tough balance, is trying to battle with the tightness that can come from some of the dirty air. So you'll see drivers try various different lines, try and get some clean air across that front wing, and try and get some clean air for those tires to make sure they can rotate. Look who's moving through this field, though, throughout all this. Adam Blocker is up to 8th position. Otis is already up to 10th with some of this attrition. And this is even with some of the dirty air coming into effect for some of these cars, rather.
Adam Blocker just got a big checkup from in front. His teammate defends from Brian Beard down to the inside. Blocker runs the middle, finds that clean air, builds the momentum. At the front of your field, though, Justin Weaver doing a great job to hold on to second position as they squabble behind him. Tony Showen down to the inside, gives his teammate that helping hand, but here comes Adam Blocker fighting side by side with Brian Beard.
You can just see how you have to be precise with these moves. Many drivers have talked about needing to be that precise and calm throughout this run. Keep in mind, these drivers can make it 38 to 40 laps on a tank of fuel, already a quarter way through that fuel run, including the pace laps for some of these drivers, all trying to establish themselves early on in this campaign.
Can see some two-wide action as Jason Galvin slides up in front of Ron Hacker. Hacker's been slowly falling through the field after making his way up through the field slightly. You can see behind him as well, Luis Gonzalez Nunez will go to the inside. Fonecchi Racing Team tried to take advantage. In front of him as well is 2 and 3 wide action. Absolutely crazy here, Justin, and just an indication of the quality that you can watch week in, week out in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Absolutely, it's going to be a very competitive season, and in the various different series, you see a lot of some of the best talents in open wheel racing come here and battle here, including in some cases too those trying to battle to the pro levels. Take for example Mike Rasmus. He's up into 18th position, a quiet night for him, and up 14 positions so far. He was one of the drivers who nearly made it from the qualifying round for the eNASCAR Road to Pro Series last season. So you have various different levels of drivers and skill levels and various different experiences when it comes to open wheel racing in the series that all congregate together. And what is a show of the best skill and adaptability.
Oh, adaptability, you put it the best. I mean, custom fixed setup, it's never going to drive exactly how you want. You have to use those weight jackers, those ARBs to get that feeling out of the car. Battle on the edge of the top 10 then. Brian Beard still holds on while Ryan Otis and Jason Galvin, Joe Branch will scrap it out. In front of them, though, Justin Weaver has done a smashing job here. It's incredible, Justin, that he's been able to hold on in the dirty air. Connor Harrington up into second at this point in time. But, you know, if Justin Weaver can hold on for a few more laps here and expect that additional caution to come out, he's in a very, very strong position. Joshua Chin, Chris Dofer fighting behind. No longer the private label team, 1, 2, 3.
Here's the tough part, though. Justin Weaver has to come into pit potentially in the next few laps or so. So he needs a caution, and now keep in mind that Chin, I believe, may be dealing with a slight bit of side damage from a little scrape. Other than that, everyone else has kept things nice and clean, and that was talked about by the drivers. Once they got to the first 20-plus laps or so, they were expecting long green flag runs. This is a track that normally dictates to long green flag run racing.
Well, let's bring in someone who's unfortunately out of today's race, the Canadian Andrew Kinsella, who was looking to start off his season in the best way possible. Contact with Sage Karam brings out the caution flag and retires the Canadian from the race. Andrew, glad you're jumping into the booth with us here. Unfortunate end to today's race, but your teammates still in a very promising position. As it looks like Andrew is actually not ready to get on with us, so we'll try and bring him in later on. Always good, Justin, to talk to some of these drivers about what's happening out on track, because they know what the dirty air feels like, what these drivers are searching for out there on the track.
Yeah, and you can tell now that the tires have worked in, it can be difficult to try and make some of these moves, hence why you need to be cautiously aggressive early on in these runs. And we've been seeing that throughout the night. Eventually, though, you have to think Justin Weaver's going to have to come down to pit here because he's the only person in the entire field who hasn't topped off on fuel or come down at all. It looks like he's already poking his way towards that bottom side. He might have to come down to the next couple laps and sacrifice his positioning for now in this battle for the lead. Where he comes out, though, could be pivotal if it becomes a green flag run, since many drivers have talked about if you have this race go green, strategy could be very interesting.
Yeah, you can't afford to come down pit road at the wrong time. 3 wide down into turn 1. Luis Gonzalez Nunez looks to get the move done on Big Joe Hassert and Ron Hacker. Hacker will lose out in the middle. Big Joe will sweep around the outside up in towards 14th position. And once again, despite the fact that these tires are starting to wear off, they are 20 laps into their fuel run right now. You can still see multiple lines being taken. Here comes Tyler Groff, and will jump on board with the number 26 car. And you'll get a good look here, Justin, of just what the drivers look for when they're into the corner.
Yeah, you can tell some of them just want to try and paint that white line right at the bottom of the racetrack, right at that first seam, and avoid some of the bumps. It is a bit of aggressive banking here as you go higher and higher up, but that white line, you're able to carry a lot of speed all the way to the apex. That top line is where you want to use it as a ramp to try and make some passes and carry that momentum to try and then cut to the bottom and complete the pass by the next apex. It's just finding those lines and the balances of, okay, this is a line that's open right now, this can work for this run. Or do I try and be patient or wait another lap here, or do I try and save a little bit?
Incredible stuff, and I'm looking at my timing screen, multiple cars side by side. I don't have enough screens to show you all of this incredible stuff. Joe Branch still battling it out with Ryan Otis in the number 95. At the front of your field, though, things are starting to intensify, if you ask me here. The Adrenaline Motorsports teammates, who a lot of them represent Powerslide Motorsports as well, they're starting to form up. Adam Blocker, Christopher getting close to one another. Tony Shaw and Henry Bennett behind them as well. 4 of these drivers in the top 10. You've also got the 3 private label drivers then, Justin. I think it gives you an indication of what we're going to be looking at throughout the entirety of today's action. It's going to be private label versus Adrenaline, and we might see across of these, I think it's upwards of 10 drivers across the 2 teams, some incredible action at every single race we go.
I think they're definitely showing that they have speed on the ovals to start things off this season. It's the question of, can they carry it over to the road courses, since a lot of drivers have talked about needing to step up the road course game. Keep in mind Long Beach, the next race too. So you can't afford to struggle on the road course after a strong start of the oval, to say the very least. So I think it's going to be curious to see who's going to be able to carry that momentum on forward. It's still early on in this race. That's the key thing right now. And the strategy is still going to be very pivotal for a lot of these organizations, especially for some of them in the teens, as Justin Weaver has indicated he's coming down this time from second.
So he's about to be out of fuel then. The number 66 car, you get the wrong side of pit road. We'll wait for Justin Weaver to come down and sacrifice track position. He will go, Justin, 1 lap down. This is end of the day then for Justin Weaver. That bold strategy call does not pay off.
That's going to end up losing him some track position for now, to say the very least. The rest of the drivers still don't have to pit for another 15 laps or so. So it's going to be interesting how the pace fares out too once the car gets up to speed, since he's already going to potentially be down a lap in this situation from having to pit. He's already, in fact, lost that lap plus off the pit lane. So how the rest of the drivers handle the pit entry, though, is going to be very important, since several drivers slid their tires into the water barrels during practice pit runs.
And you do obviously have to come down onto pit road in through turn 3, so that will make it slightly easier, but do believe we have Andrew Kinsella who's standing by now. Andrew, you got a copy?
I got you there, Arjuna.
Andrew, disappointing start to your season then. This is a track where you've had success before. Talk to us a little bit about how this race is playing out. We've seen some incredible action on these restarts, and then as we work through these green flag runs, cars start to struggle a bit more in the dirty air.
Yeah, I think this new tire model is taking a little bit forever.
Sorry, Andrew,
to work
I'm going to
out.
cut you off because your teammate Christopher has just gone into the wall at turn 4. Caution flies once again, and not a great start then for the Indiana native, who's already reset back onto pit road. Justin, take a look at this RaceBot TV replay.
And he tried to slide up right in front of Joshua Chin, but it's a little bit close quarters racing in that situation to try that. I think Stouffer was just getting a little bit tight. Chin ends up getting some damage. Stouffer with the damage. Keep in mind, they've been battling back and forth for a good while or so, for at least 10, 20 laps.
Oh, you'll get a great view of this here. Just Stouffer tries to slide up into the outside, and unfortunately Chin was still there. Stouffer out of the race. What's going to happen to Chin here, though, Justin? He's still out there on track. I wonder what the damage to the number 93 is going to look like.
Well, right now, I think he's actually lost much of his front wing. It's the matter of how the side pods are going to fare, because that could be very pivotal for speed. Any little bobble of the side pods with the damage model, you can lose a lot of straight line speed. So you don't want that type of damage. Right now, at least visually, it looks like it's mainly front nose, to the point where the front nose is, well, almost fallen off the King of Chins. But if he's able to just keep it to that, or it's just that, I think he might be okay.
And an interesting call. James Krahula stays out there on track. I wonder if he'll come down the next time, or if we're going to see one more driver try a bold strategy, expecting another caution. Sorry to cut you off there, Andrew, but unfortunately, a second Adrenaline Motorsports teammate has now fallen off the grid, and not the way you want to start off a season, but again, 22 races. It's a long road to get to Auto Club in December. The championship hopes still not done yet.
Oh yeah, it's still early. It was just one of those racing deals today. I was trying to let Sage in front of me. I was off the throttle for most of the corner, and I was trying to sort of cut down below him, but it looks like when he tried to hit the apex there and he just started sliding, he was scrubbing off a lot more speed than I anticipated, but there was nothing I could do. I was off the throttle for a good 2 or 3 seconds before we hit, so it was just one of those things, and we'll get him next time at Long Beach.
Long Beach is going to be a very interesting one as well. What are your thoughts on going to the streets around Long Beach? Not much room for mistakes, and it might be one of the few races on the road courses where we might actually think about a potential track blocker and therefore a safety car.
Yeah, I'd say that's a definite possibility. With 42 drivers trying to get around Long Beach, it's going to be interesting, I'm not going to lie, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This car with a new tire model works really, really well on the road courses, and the street circuits in particular are a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that even if we do get a safety car, it'll still put on a great show, and I think it'll be a lot of fun when we get there.
Well, thanks for jumping in, Andrew. Unfortunate start to your season, but we'll look for you to rebound then in a couple of weeks' time at Long Beach.
Thanks, Arjuna.
So Andrew Kinsella out of today's race. He was to be our featured driver, so despite the fact that he's not in the field, we'll still go ahead and talk a little bit about his career here in Lionheart. Almost 90 starts, 10 wins, 1 pole, 62 top 10s, and is one of the few drivers to have, I think the only driver rather, to have won on his debut in this series as well. That top 10 percentage though, Justin, I think that gives you an indication just how consistent a driver Andrew Kinsella can be.
Yeah, his average finish is actually a top 10 right now in this series, and that may go down a little bit after tonight, but overall, he's been a strong contender. Of course, was up inside the top 5 in the championship standings last season, and he talked about how, with me earlier today, in fact, where he's in it to win a championship just like every year. And you don't enter with that mentality. If you don't enter with that mentality, rather, then you don't need, the drivers don't need to beat you because you've already beat yourself. And that mentality has worked out to a lot of success in this series.
A couple of cars getting their lap back. I wonder if Justin Weaver has managed to scamper around. He's back on the lead laps. Slightly off strategy, but he'll be at least on the lead lap at the tail end of the field, Justin. That's exactly what he needed, and gives him the opportunity to try this strategy one more time.
He's only off cycle 2 by about 5 laps or so. So Justin Weaver, while he lost the track position, it's not in a bad spot pit-wise. It's going to be tight, though, keep in mind. Remember that fuel window we talked about, up to 40 laps? With under 80 to go, it's potentially, for a lot of the drivers, a one-stopper if they can stretch it to the end. So it's going to be close. For Weaver, though, it's going to be much more difficult with those extra laps turned.
Let's go on board and jump around this grid, take in the sights and sounds of the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway here on another race restart. Another caution, but halfway through this race, almost, lots of strategy still on the table. Jason Brophy will lead us to the green flag, then back to green flag racing here in the HyperX Miami 200. Adam Blocker finds himself at the front of the field, and he challenges the defending race winner Connor Harrington up into the lead of the race. What a drive it's been, Justin, to make his way up through the field, use these restarts as an opportunity to gain lots of positions, and your defending champion back at the front.
And he talked about how he found a good rhythm at the end of last season. There were some mistake points for Blocker that happened back last campaign that nearly cost them the opportunity for the championship. It's looking like he's rectified some of those mistakes for tonight so far, because he's looked very strong, especially in the corners and especially in the back and forth.
Very impressed as well by Jason Galvin, another car that's made his way up through the field. Announcer on ESPN in basketball, but clearly a racing fan as well, and representing Thumbs Up Cancer Down, doing a great job in the number 42 car, trying to get to the outside of Tony Showen, who slides up the track, feeds him the dirty air, but here comes that momentum back down to the inside. You can see back in the pack as well, they're getting very, very feisty, and take a look at this action, Justin. Too wide, too deep.
A lot of slicing and dicing with some of these fresh tires right now for some of these competitors, but a little bit more broken up compared to the start of the race right now, to say the very least. Keeping my eye, though, on Chin, who has now got a new front wing and still seems to have speed. The problem is he's stuck in the dirty air of this entire pack in the battle for 11th.
Tyler Groff to the inside then of Chris Fowler. Ooh, slight contact between of them. It's not going to check them up too much, but here comes Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who makes contact with Tyler Groff. And I think the caution flag is about to fly once more. Now the car having an issue then off turn number 4, and it's Tyler Groff, who fortunately doesn't have suspension damage this time around. RaceSpot TV replay up on your screen, Justin. Give us your thoughts on this one.
A little bit of frustration for the first bit. It looked like he was going to be okay. Then just a slight, tiny nudge from the front wing of the car behind. Ends up sliding him around. I think he's going to be okay, but he's not going to be happy losing the track position. He had been someone who started at the back of this race and worked his way all the way up to here right before this.
So car slides through the grass. We're under caution once more here at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. We're going to take a short commercial break here live on RaceSpot TV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages from our partners. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and Round 1 coverage of the HyperX Miami 200 and the season opener in the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by ButtKicker. Under caution once again, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside is Justin Prince. Pit lights are still on the pace car, so we've still got a lap to go here, Justin. Want to get your quick thoughts as we return from that quick break, because it's been very, very entertaining, very exciting as well, but a lot of excitement on these restarts. And then as you get into the green flag runs, it starts to become more difficult for our drivers.
It was talked about by the drivers. In fact, they expected this type of racing with both the high and low lines working at both ends of the racetrack. And that's what's coming to play tonight, Arjuna. It's been fun to see a lot of the back and forths and a lot of the battling. And it's also been fun to see some of the drivers cut their way to the field, like Blocker, like Jason Galvin, like Big Joe Hessert is up 15 positions as well. Some of these drivers have been keeping it nice and calm, while others have been looking to make a name for themselves in their organization so far. Look at some of those big movers, a plus 20 for Galvin, in fact.
Yeah, that's incredible. Plus 20 for Lionel Callisto as well, but he's back in 16th. If he can get up into that top 5, think about how impressive that run will be for him as well. So those are the movers and shakers. Lights go off on the pace car. We'll go back to green flag racing this time around. Just a reminder as well, you can follow the Lionheart Racing Series on social media to follow along with all 3 competitions that will be featured live on ESTV and RaceSpot TV throughout the entirety of 2021. You can also follow us live on RaceSpot TV by heading over to @RaceSpot TV on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. And if you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, you should hit that red button and the bell next to it so you get notified every time we go live with a great sim racing series we get to cover. At the front of your field then, the private label Team Height stranglehold at the front has been broken. It's now Connor Harrington who leads. He's got Adam Blocker, Jason Brophy, Tony Schowen through behind him. So teammates 1 and 3, teammates 2 and 4 will go back to green flag racing this time around. And Justin, what do you think's going to happen here?
I think we're going to see some great back and forth once again between Harrington and Blocker. As off and away they go. Another great launch by Harrington. Blocker has struggled at times on some of these restarts, but keep in mind that the slipstream has been very powerful. It's been difficult to try and hold on to the lead, especially when there's been drivers on fresh tires. Here comes that slipstream for Blocker.
Where's he going to go? Harrington defends to the inside. Blocker forces his way down all the way to the white line into the race lead. Adam Blocker once again. Where are the rest of his teammates? Still stacking themselves up behind. Oh, but there you can see Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Contact was made with Tyler Groff a few moments ago. He now works behind Chris Fowler as 2 wide in front of him. That's Joe Branch and Ron Hacker side by side through turn 2. And as they exit the corner, Joe Branch on the outside builds the momentum, Justin, and he gets up into 9th position.
A solid day for Joe Branch, keeping it nice and calm and clean so far. Want to give a shout out to Otis as well, who's up those 5 positions right in front of him. He's been having a very solid day after his experience from the retro side. Of course, those drivers taking to the track tomorrow. It's going to be interesting how the handling fares for those drivers and the adaptability to go from the ground effects in the retro cars compared to the modern day aerodynamics.
That's going to be a very weird change around to come back to the virtual Homestead, switch that around, like you say, dive into a classic American open wheel car and see how that's going to go. At the front of your field, Adam Blocker, Connor Harrington are still swapping around for the lead of the race, and they pulled out a slight gap to Tony Schowen behind. We've mentioned here on a couple of occasions, Justin, this is a fixed setup, but there is in-car tools for adjustment. There's a lot of confusion, I think, from some drivers getting to grips with this new tire model and understanding how to use those adjustments, but so far, we haven't seen too many drivers getting caught out yet.
Yeah, most drivers have kept it nice and stable. There were the concerns of potential looseness, but some of the drivers have talked about how if you use it right and use your settings right, like the weight jackers and the ARB settings, to be able to balance out the tire wear and be able to adjust to the tire wear as the run goes on, then you're in a good spot. Because overall, keep in mind, for example, the ARBs make adjustments when it comes to, say, the rear ARB. That is, you're going to cause it very soft to be less of impact if you mess around with it wrong compared to the front ARB, etc. There's various different aspects that you have for the setups when it comes to being able to adjust, rather, for these cars. It's important to know those adjustments.
And I think, it was a really nice update when in these fixed setup competitions, iRacing opened up those in-car tools just about, 10 months ago to allow these drivers to have that a bit more flexibility and for them to use a fixed setup, which of course is never going to suit your driving style 100%. It's never going to be fully optimized for the track as well. It does help you out that much more. Dustin Wardlow, he's up into the wall. Somehow we stay under green. He's going to reset back onto pit road. And we'll spool up the RaceBot TV replay machine, Justin, and take a look at more damage then. It might be a solo car incident here.
Yeah, we'll take a look. As you can see, he's up towards the top line and had to check up for somebody, and I think that just sparked what happened to him because it was already 2 to 3 wide around him with several drivers trying to make some aggressive moves. And right there, just that little very edge of a tap is enough to get him loose to spiral him out of control into the side pods of other cars.
And more contact there for Joshua Chin. I don't think he's enjoying the season opener so much. At the front of your field, though, Adam Blocker, Connor Harrington have scampered away from Jason Brophy, gap back to the third place car, and your highest running rookie in today's field is now up to 9/10 of a second, and Brophy's mirrors are now getting full as Tony Shaw and Jason Galvin close on through. Jason Galvin, what a performance it's been so far, Justin. We don't necessarily have an underdog that we get to award up here in the RaceBot TV commentary booth, but you know what? If we're going to give one for today's race, about halfway through, Jason Galvin is going to take this one home.
Now keep in mind, Jason Galvin is a very strong driver in himself, Arjuna, especially when it comes to short track racing. When it comes to the old IndyCar chassis in particular, he races in various different series, especially on some of the retro sides as well. So it shouldn't be a surprise completely to see Galvin up here, but tonight, he's played this race very smart. He's someone that has always approached these races, in my opinion, in that smart way of getting track position, but in the right spots. And we've been seeing that tonight from Galvin.
Out front, Adam Blocker now 4/10 of a second clear from Connor Harrington. 25 laps into this run on tires. Seems like clean air is starting to be more of a factor. Galvin works back down to the inside of Tony Shawan, tries to find the clean air, unable to make things work. We'll turn our attention back in the pack once again, edge of the top 10, and this time jump on board with Lionel Callisto, chasing down the Canadian Brian Carey in front of him, and Callisto, who is must be up at this point, Justin, about 25 positions, rockets his way up in towards the top 10.
Close, 24 in fact to be precise, but Brian Carey already to his inside, and that's the tough part, right, is trying to maintain that line. I think, though, based on what we're seeing, though, that top line seems to be the better line to be able to get clear on the corner exit, to be able to pull an advantage if you get the draft, to be able to quickly get on by and carry some speed and momentum for the uphill portion towards that back straightaway. And it's been working for him so far. He's, in fact, one of the quickest cars on the racetrack right now, 25.4s.
We'll turn our attention back to the front of your field for the time being, because Connor Harrington is now lost out as Jason Brophy has closed on in. And in the meantime as well, Tony Shawan is now having to defend from Jason Galvin and his teammate Henry Bennett. We'll turn our attention actually to Joe Branch and Ryan Otis here, because Ryan Otis up into 8th position. He's riding on board with our Sim Experience onboard camera. He's got a pretty good view now of Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Justin, diving to the inside up into the top 10 for the first time today.
Yeah, very impressive race for Nunez. As for many different organizations, there are different approaches. We talked about Callisto, for example, teaming up in Sector 5, for example. Nunez, though, one of the drivers that will be amongst the maiden seasons for an organization in 2021 for the Nikki Racing team, for his organization. It's been an impressive one for him so far with those 18 spots gained.
Yeah, qualifying didn't go the strongest. He was on social media in the build-up to the race talking about his hopes and talking about all the strong competition he wanted to fight it out with. And now up into 8th position, chases down Ryan Otis in front of him. So, interesting fight. And if we look back out front, left-hand side of your screen, you can follow along with the race-leading gaps. But for now, we'll turn our cameras on them as well. Jason Brophy up into 2nd, 1.2 seconds behind the race leader now, Justin. And Adam Blocker, you can't let him have the leads of these races, because he'll start to run away And as we work through these green flag runs, for a driver who only did his first laps at the virtual Homestead today, very strong performance so far.
Yeah, he is running 0.3 of a lap quicker. You have to wonder, though, Arjuna, if Brophy and Harrington are trying to save a bit of fuel. We talked about how close the fuel window could be, especially needing to get to 40 laps to go to make it a one-stopper to the end. That may be part of the reason for why we're seeing them run that pace drop-off all of a sudden, especially in the corners. That is, meanwhile, also being seen for these cars where they've dropped to the 25.7s. In fact, Nunez, the only driver in the 5s among this conga line for about 4 on back for these respective drivers.
Yeah, and quoting you, Justin, we used to commentate on a series together with a driver called Ruben Bonga. Those bongo drums are really being thrashed by Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's up into 7th, past Ryan Otis. Meanwhile, Henry Bennett slips past his teammate. This battle for 4th position, great aerial look at the lines being taken, the clean air being found, and different lines across all 3 cars, Justin, as well.
I believe there might have been an issue for Joe Hassard, in fact, just now in the 11 machine. He's now off the racetrack, I believe, with some smoke down the back straightaway. And he's damaged that front wing, in fact, to the point where it's similar to what happened to Chin. I think this might have been a solo car incident, though, unfortunately for Hassard, where, keep in mind, we talked about cars potentially getting loose. We may have just seen our first victim of that throughout the day today because he got loose a ton off turn 2.
That is a bizarre incident as well. Let's jump on board with Joe Hassett here and take another look at this. You're right, solo car incident, Justin, and take a look at this. It's just that wheel angle that's being cranked. Oh, and as he comes off the banking, nothing he can even really do in this situation.
Yeah, just ended up getting loose. Potentially the adjustments to the weight jackers we talked about coming in there that ends up causing to snap around and burn that right rear tire. And a very hard hit, no caution flag. We stay green as he's now lost the front wing. And that puts him into a 2-stop situation as well for the rest of the way on the gas.
Well, he had to tow as well, so I would have a feeling that Big Joe is unfortunately not going to be towards the front of the field. He's won here twice, not going to get to add to that today. So back to live pictures, we pick up this battle for 2nd and 3rd. 1.6 seconds behind Adam Blocker, who's put on the rocket chargers and has fired them up and is now trying to pull away with a 2-second gap. We'll turn attention towards the mid-pack. Jason Galvin is being passed by Henry Bennett. Bennett now tries to chase down Jason Brophy in the battle of the rookies. Very experienced IndyCar competitors, the both of them on official competitions. And this is the great thing about the Lionheart Series, Justin. We'll get to see the likes of Jason Brophy, the likes of Henry Bennett, a 5 times Indy Open champion on the iRacing.com service, competing as rookies in one of the strongest open wheel series we have in private competition.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the talent's going to come into play to be able to compete at the highest levels when it comes to the series too, right? Is you know your competitors, especially some of their strengths, and you know how to be able to attack the various racetracks. But look who's been able to slowly creep his way on forward. Chin has slowly worked his way to the top half rather of the field, now battling with Chris Fowler at the moment.
Yeah, Chin, who of course had that front wing damage, recovering into 14th. Do believe he was very strong last year, but didn't always have the best of luck, and sometimes strategy didn't work out in his favor as well. But Chin to the inside, now up into 13th position. He'll be hoping that's lucky number 13 in his case. Meanwhile, Ryan Otis now challenges Tony Schowen. Schowen has been dropping off the pace here, and when it comes down to those in-car tools, you just wonder if he's maybe been over-relying. Maybe he's not even found the right balance at this point in time, Justin. We started in late afternoon, we're now racing under the night lights.
Keep in mind the track temp about 76 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, and the winds currently gusting to the northwest at 4 miles an hour, so those winds can play a bit of a factor, but we're coming up to 40 to go now, and it looks like a majority of the field has reached that mark. So Adam Blocker's done a terrific job in saving. Nunez and several others have done a terrific job in being able to save the fuel. It's the matter of, can they get up to Blocker and company now is the big question now that they've gotten to that fuel mark.
Well, first car is already committed down onto pit road. There you can see Matt Houston makes his way down, slots into his box. He'll go up on the jacks. Fresh set of tires, full tank of fuel, head back out onto track for the final time today. In the meantime, Adam Blocker is still at the front of your field. Luis Gonzalez Nunez tries to get past Brian Beard. Beard very quick in qualifying. And that's going to be a storyline to think about as well, Justin. Qualifying is a very different experience in the Lionheart Racing Series. You've got a fixed setup, and often doesn't necessarily work the same way as the race setup works.
Absolutely, and it can be tricky when it comes to the fuel balance, when it comes to the tire pressures, when it comes to the heat, when it comes to qualifying. When it comes to the race trim as well, you're talking about a full fuel load for many of these teams. So it's about the weight distribution as well. But Brian Beard has come into pit along with Ron Hacker. They're in for their scheduled stops. This should get them to the end, as this should start a cavalcade of pit stops here.
It has. Connor Harrington is committed here. You see Tony Showen working down onto pit road. Let's take a look at the stop then for your defending race winner. 12 months ago, took the race victory in a very entertaining race to the flag. And he'll cycle out then into some dirty air, but he'll have fresh tires as compared to the rest of the field. What's the pit stop time going to be for Connor Harrington? For the final time in this opening race of the season, Harrington up on the jacks, 5 seconds stationary already, as Showen behind gets into his box as well. 8.8 seconds stationary, and now let's watch out, Justin, to where he feeds out.
That's going to be pivotal, especially since Blocker and Brophy both have come down to the pit lane. And Brophy gained a ton of time, keep in mind, on his pit entry. Already Blocker an 8.7 second stop. Brophy, I think, overran part of his pit box, though. That's going to lose him that advantage he picked up on his entry.
You are right there. You can see Brophy still stationary. The gap between those two cars is going to be rather significant. Where's Harrington? Down the start-finish straight. He works. Tires already building up temperature and pressure as he dives his way in through turn 1. And there's his teammate. Where's Adam Blocker, the number 1 car? Already in towards turn 3. I think, Justin, he might already have about a 3-second advantage at this point.
That is a terrific in and out sequence for Adam Blocker to be able to gain what is going to go and amount to 2 seconds overall, the difference among these cars. And it's an art form to be able to enter the pit lane, keep in mind, Arjun, to be able to not just maintain but try and gain time, to be able to be in that situation where you can pick up that pace. Sometimes as a leader, you need to be able to calculate that properly to make sure you're able to stay up in that advantage. For other times, it's knowing the limitations on how aggressive you can be on that access road, all the way to commitment cone, then back from the commitment cone, back down the access road, back into the racetrack. And I think Blocker's done a great job of that tonight. Some of these other drivers, though, are stretching it a decent bit. Keep in mind that the drivers 9th on forward for now, make that 8th on forward, had all topped off on a previous caution flag.
Jason Galvin works the inside of Tyler Groff after that incident for the graphic designer for the Lionheart Racing Series. Galvin now chases down Henry Bennett. 3.3 seconds clear is Bennett in the 07. Behind Galvin, though, Brian Beard, Tony Showen, Joe Branch, and a number of cars getting stacked up. There's the challenge coming from Brian Beard on Tony Showen, and the pole position winner, mired down in 15th position, Justin, looks to try and use these remaining 31 laps to fight his way back to the front of this field.
And Beard is always a very strong competitor at these types of racetracks, especially in some of the older chassis. It's been interesting to see him fare, though, tonight, where he's just continuously gone and shuffled out in the dirty air. I think it's just the balance of how he's handled some of these corners and the momentum for tonight and some of these runs. But keep in mind that eventually these battles are going to be for what could be your top 5 once the rest of those drivers who are now 41 laps in their stints are in here. Like Bennett, like Galvin. They're in great positions for some strong starts to the season.
Did they just go 4 wide? Did they just go 4 wide, Justin?
I think they might have. Wow.
Absolutely incredible stuff. And we've had a number of cautions, but nevertheless, the action out on track has been unbelievable. The respect being shown across the various teams, unbelievable. Brian Beard still tries to close down Tony Showen in front. Luis Gonzalez Nunez comes in from behind as well, trying to get down to the inside of Joe Branch. At the front, though, net race leader Adam Blocker in 8th position, 2.1 seconds clear of Connor Harrington. An additional 1.2 seconds clear then from Jason Brophy. And Blocker's teammate Henry Bennett, on his debut in the series, tries to fight for a podium position here. Green flag pit stops always entertaining then, Justin. And we've you did mention the difficulty of coming down onto pit road. No one really got caught out there.
Yeah, not too many drivers have come in together, and I think that's the main difference point. A lot of the practice pit lane entries were in gatherings of 5-6 drivers, which can always be chaotic when it comes to the IR-18. But I think Justin Weaver is the next driver who's just ducked down to the pit lane, and the rest of the drivers are starting to indicate that they're coming in this time by for their scheduled stops here.
Onboard ride with Ryan Otis, who of course has your sim experience onboard camera for today's activities. Chris Fowler in front, and Otis will sweep down to the inside, builds up momentum as you can see the train of cars makes their way down onto pit road in front, though, of Ryan Otis. A couple of battles going on as well. That's Brian Carey, Joshua Chin, 18th and 19th positions respectively. And as the final pit stops get completed then here at the Homestead Miami Speedway, 3 wide in front once again. Oh, incredible stuff here, and just an indication that you don't need an open setup, the ability for drivers to go out there and tweak everything to their heart's content, Justin. Just stick 41 of the best drivers out there on track and they will deliver a show.
Absolutely, and they've done that tonight with some great racing, and it was, like I said, it was talked about for many of these competitors. They expected that to be the case, where it's a place where you can make the high line or the low line work, where it's for each individual driver, they can make each line work, as well as in a situation where if you're the dirty air, as Adam Blocker would say, or whether you're the high line or work low line, you can figure out which lanes are going to work better. And we've seen the drivers be able to adapt to that throughout the night. And now, with under 25 laps to go, it's the interesting mark of how the rest of this race plays out.
The King of Chins gets past Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Chin's recovery drive has been very, very impressive. An indication of what he's going to look to do in his second full season of competition. In the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by Butt Kicker. He cuts the nose off of the number 14 machine. Very, very fun stuff then on the edge of the top 10. Jump on board, by the way, with Richie Hearn, who's of course got our minus 273 onboard camera. He's fighting it with Stefan Larkamp. And I'm going to be honest, Justin, it's going to be very, very weird to call someone like Richie Hearn, with so much real-world experience of an IndyCar, a rookie throughout the entirety of this season. He's mired down in 18th position after not getting a qualifying lap time in, but he's going to be one that I watch out for in terms of progression over the course of the season.
I'm curious as well, because he's somebody that we've seen in various different series across the service be competitive in these types of cars, especially more so, in my opinion, on some of the road courses. He won on an oval, keep in mind, in the 1990s at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the IRL at the time. He's a very competitive driver, to say the very least, and a very solid broadcaster, too, on the sim.
Very solid indeed. In fact, has called Lionheart races in the past. Brian Beard, Joe Branch, as well as Lionel Callisto. Let's take a look then at the movers and shakers on the left-hand side of your screen, as here comes Lionel Callisto. How many positions is he up so far, you wonder? 25. Some incredible movers in today's race. Adam Blocker is up 17. You kind of expect that from the 3-time back-to-back series champion. Jason Galvin in the 42 car up 20 positions. Luis Gonzalez Nunez on debut is up 19 positions. Then you got the likes of Callisto, Justin Weaver, who we should watch our eyes out for as well, Justin. He came down the pit lane the last of these cars. If tire wear starts to be a factor in the closing stages of this race, he'll be one to work his way through the field.
And he knows something else. The thought process is, remember the top-offs we talked about? They're going to have lighter cars. As in, they're going to potentially be a little bit faster, those drivers. In fact, they're running lap times up to 3/10 quicker than in full fuel tanks right now, a couple of those competitors. So it's the matter of, is there enough time for someone like a Weaver or, say, a Krahul or a Ricky Harden to be able to gain enough track position back to be able to make it pay off? So it's going to be interesting how this all plays out for those respective drivers now. Weaver's in the best position to do so here. Remember, he was at 1.1 lap down after trying an alternative strategy.
And I love this. In another series I get to broadcast, we've had cars upside down in our first safety cars and endurance races come back to still win the entire race. So to be able to have that opportunity, oh no, car's loose, down to the inside wall, not sure exactly who that one was. I think it was Brian Beard, your pole position winner, Justin. A very strong day comes unstuck.
And that's unfortunate indeed, and it was talked about a little bit about the weight jacker before when it came to the previous incident as well as potential damage. That time, Brian Beard ended up doing a great job of keeping it off the wall. You'll see right here on the onboard where he ends up just getting loose when he hits the top of the rev limiter. Does a great job in fourth gear to keep it off that fence.
I called car control on display on a number of occasions in the past. That was some of the best car control I've seen in recent memory. Just about survives, but unfortunately for Brian Beard, your pole position winner, down now into 18th position. He's dropped behind Richie Hearn, who we were just talking about a few moments ago. Through lap traffic, then some of these cars work. Not sure who that is down on the inside of Connor Harrington, but not making life easy. And of course, lap traffic, Justin, a big factor here at a 1.5 mile track.
Yeah, if anything, some of the drivers are trying to use it for some of the slipstream a little bit, but one driver, I think, just hit the wall. Justin Weaver, we were just talking about him, is in the wall down the back straightaway, Arjuna.
And he's going to keep it to the right-hand side as cars fly on past, waiting for his opportunity to get down to the inside and reset to the pit lane. This must feel like an eternity after a very strong day for Justin Weaver. And that number 66 car will reset back down onto pit road in just a few moments' time then.
There's not a lot of holes, though, and finally gets one to be able to pull off to the access road. No caution flag, and it's so unfortunate because we talked about how Weaver had the lighter car, could potentially get himself a solid finish. Just got too loose on that high line, trying to carry a ton of momentum. Had a rapid loss of speed, at least 10 miles an hour just prior to this.
And we'll get a great look at this onboard look then from the right-hand side of the cockpit. Ooh, very loose. Able to hold off that car snapping viciously back into the inside wall, but unfortunate end to the day then for Justin Weaver. Let's go back to live pictures then, pick up the battle for second and third. Jason Brophy in this lap traffic has managed to close to just 0.3 of a second from his teammate. 1.5 seconds back though, Justin, is Henry Bennett. This battle between rookies debuting in this series, they're scrapping it out now for that third and final podium place.
And I noticed one thing when it comes to Brophy, too, that he actually took a little bit of a gamble with that pit strategy, even though we overran some of that box. He actually put a little bit less fuel, I think, into the car to try and have it a little bit lighter. So he's done an impressive job knowing the strategy, Arjuna.
And this time across the line for Adam Blocker, it will be 10 to go. So just 25 miles left to go here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Adam Blocker with a 2.5 second advantage over Jason Brophy, who is now, over Connor Harrington, who finds Jason Brophy 0.6 of a second back. Meanwhile, though, lots of scrapping in the middle of the pack. Just as always, Ryan Otis in a sandwich. Joe Branch in front, James Grahula behind. And disappointing day potentially then for Ryan Otis here, Justin, because we've seen him up and down through the field. And when the momentum has been in his favor, he's been one of the quickest cars on track.
Yeah, he's done a very solid job tonight, I think, overall, especially keeping that car clean. He's made some smart moves. It's just been a matter of the track position for Otis to be able to get himself through the field, and we've seen that tonight. But the driver, keep in mind, that is trying to battle with him is James Grahula, too, that I want to give a shout-out to, Arjuna. We talked about the various fuel strategies. He was in 17th position 10 laps ago.
Oh, wow. He is 8 laps... He's got 8 laps fresher tires than the rest of his competitors. So we talked about Justin Weaver. Watch for James Grahula. Otis back down to the inside as in front. Lionel Callisto and Joe Branch side by side. 2 wide, 2 deep within the last 10 laps here at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Battle for third is starting to intensify as well. You've got Henry Bennett, who's closed down Jason Brophy. Just 0.6 of a second separate those two drivers. We're still 2 wide, 2 deep. Otis tries the slide job. Grahula around the outside holds on, though. In front of them, Callisto up into 10th position. And what a drive it's been then for Lionel Callisto. I'm not sure, Justin, if I'm being honest, if we can expect to see this many movers and shakers throughout the entirety of our season, because Homestead is delivering some exceptional racing. When you get to some of these tougher tracks, the shorter tracks as well, it can be that much more difficult to make things stick.
It's going to be really interesting, especially how tracks like Phoenix play out, where you have the potential of drivers getting loose and attrition come into play as well. And consistency is going to be very important. So for many of the drivers who are big movers, I think it's the matter of trying to make sure they get qualifying dialed down, to make sure they get that track position so they don't get marred in this traffic potentially for the future. Many drivers have done some great jobs, they'll have to say, to be able to get themselves into good situations with 5 to go.
You can see as well, oh no, contact made! That's going to be a late race caution, I would have to think. It's down on the inside, not sure who's getting involved, and caution flies. Not sure, Justin, if this is going to bring a close to our opening round of this season, the HyperX Miami 200, but the racing action was picking up, and cautions breed cautions.
And this could mar an interesting finish here, as I believe it was Hearn making contact with Scott Holmes down the front straightaway, where I think one thought he was clear, Arjuna, the other ended up getting the run and had the momentum. It wasn't clear, and a big pile up at the bottom of the racetrack as it ricochets into the racing line in turn 1.
We'll go on this aerial look brought to us by ATVO, the graphical partners at RaceSpot TV, super slow-mo, as they like to do back in Europe. We'll see here, and you're right, you know, I think that's Richie Hearn just squeezing Scott Holmes all the way to the wall. And I wonder if Richie Hearn is actually going to get out of this one with relatively minor damage. Nope, hard contact with the inside wall, and another car getting mixed up as well then in this one, Justin.
Tough breaks all around this late into the race, and all you need to do is make it for the next couple minutes and couple laps, and you get a solid point start to the season instead. Those drivers are going to finish essentially with DNFs. And keep in mind that you don't want this to be your first race's conclusion. You want to be able to carry momentum from this race on forward. So this is going to be tough for them to swallow.
And we're just trying to do the math here. The congratulations are coming down in the session chat, so I think it's official. Race will be ended under caution for only the second time in series history. If you can believe, in 9 races, this will only be the second time we finish under caution. Absolutely incredible. We've had quite a few cautions. This is going to get up towards the most cautions we've had. 7 set back in Season 6. But it does surpass the most entries we've ever had for the season opener as well. 40 was the maximum grid back in Season 4. 41 cars taking to the green flag today. There will be 24 of them that come around to take the checkered flag then in a couple of laps' time. 5 miles to go before Adam Blocker can take the checkered flag then here, Justin. And let's just try and recap as we can, because we'll get the drivers in for post-race coverage right after the checkered flag flies, but a good opportunity then for us to start reflecting on this season opener. Incredible stuff, and wow, I'm so excited. I get to come back and do this tomorrow with the Lionheart Retro Series.
And that's going to be fun as well, I think, to see which teams come out on top of that one. But what a drive, we have to say, when it comes to Adam Blocker tonight, because he struggled in qualifying, but by the first third of the race, he was up at the front. He was able to make his way through the potential attrition. He was able to save his equipment. He was able to manage his runs. He just had the speed all night long, and especially when it was time to break away. And for some where they were trying to save, he ended up getting the fuel numbers butted in correctly and ended up just flying away by that extra couple seconds to get him away from the rest of the pack. He played this race very smart and very well tonight.
And it's bizarre. Sim racing is a hobby which I started about 6 years ago, Justin, and have made some of the best friends that I can have imagined. I got to meet Adam for the first time on Monday. He was, as mentioned, was the engine engineer rather, for a certain Formula 1 driver that's returning to the IndyCar paddock at Laguna Seca in his travels back to the East Coast. Got to meet up with him for about an hour after being his teammate for just over 12 months. In fact, no, it's been about 14 months now, because I joined the Powerslide Motorsports crew and Adrenaline Motorsports team back in January of last year, and this team has really grown leaps and bounds over the last 12 months. So many new drivers have come on board, And of course, it all culminated in that famous victory, the 2020 Open Wheels 500-mile race. Blocker came across the line in second. I know he was very disappointed about that, but his teammate, Hugo Olsen, took the win in what proved to be the first broadcast open setup Indy 500 race win for this team. What a way to kick off the season, though. After starting back in the pack, Adam Blocker rockets his way up through the field, and he takes a very well-deserved race victory then to kick off his title defense and his quest to become the Lionheart IndyCar champion for the 4th consecutive year. Incredible action here then at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Connor Harrington will come across the line in second with his teammate Jason Brophy in third. The highest placed rookie Henry Bennett will finish in fourth, with the King of Chins making it 3 Team Hype cars in the top 5. They are a force to be reckoned with and trying to dethrone your organization champions, Adrenaline Motorsports. Exciting stuff, Justin, and as mentioned, I get to come back and do this all over again tomorrow alongside Dylan Cole. You can catch it live on RaceSpot TV at 7:35 Pacific, 10:35 Eastern, as we break out the Lotus 79s instead of the Dallara IR18.
That's going to be a fun race, absolutely, to see which teams come up on top and how some of those drivers fare. Many of the drivers we've seen tonight, we may see there tomorrow. Some of those competitors started off in that series, in fact. It's going to be fun, to say the very least, how those Lotus 79s handle here at Homestead.
And Adam Blocker will do some very well-earned donuts, I would have to think. Probably has sufficient fuel to spare as well. No concerns about race engines here in the virtual world. Adam Blocker, who is responsible for Chevy engines in the IndyCar paddock, brings his car in towards the HyperX victory lane. We'll get to our post-race coverage in just a few moments' time, but for now, let's go ahead and take a look at your final race results. So here are your Carnock's final race results, and after 134 laps, Adam Blocker takes victory under caution. Private label Team Hype, what a day for them. They were hoping for 3 cars on the podium, but instead they'll settle for 3 cars in the top 5. Jason Brophy in third position, your highest placed rookie as well, beats off the challenge from your 5 times IndyCar Open champion Henry Bennett. Jason Galvin, a very impressive drive up into 6th position for the Thumbs Up Cancer Down LPM driver. Tony Schowen struggled in the late portions of that race, down into 7th. Behind him, though, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, another driver rocketing his way up through the field. Adrenaline Motorsports make it 5 of their cars in the top 10, so not a bad day at all, with Brian Carey, Joe Branch 9th and 10th respectively. And then Lionel Callisto 11th, James Grahula in 12th, Ryan Otis in 13th, Chris Fowler back in 14th, Ricky Hard in 15th, Matt Houston for Team Race First on debut in 16th position. Your pole position winner Brian Beard finishes back in the field in 17th, with Stefan Larkamp, Ron Hacker, and Samuel Ryman rounding out the top 20. James Paulson finishes in 21st alongside Mike Rigney, Christopher Reagan, and Mike Rasmussen being 1 lap down. A couple of cars then being caught up in incidents. Richie Hearn, Scott Holmes, Tyler Groff, Adam Fraser, Justin Weaver, Big Joe Hassert down in 30th. We've got a lot of non-finishers in today's field. 41 cars taking to the green flag. Dustin Wardlow, Christopher, Brian Greenlee, Damon Martinez, Jay Brunt, Sage Karam, Matt Taylor, George Anzaldo, Andrew Kinsella, Ken Hacker, and then our final non-finisher, Aaron Morgan, who had some connection issues getting in towards today's race. So it is time then to go trackside for the HyperX post-race show, and we'd like to thank the HyperX team for sponsoring the Lionheart Racing Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit www.hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT 15, for 15% off all orders. What a way to kick it off then, and just before we get into our post-race coverage with the drivers, Justin, I want to get what I like to do from my commentators, put you on the spot. We've just seen an amazing start to this season, 22 races on this calendar. And if you had to predict right now who our champion's going to be come December and our finale in Auto Club, what do you think that's going to be?
That's a very tricky question, to say the very least, because there's a lot that can happen with the road courses in particular. Adam Blocker, I think, is definitely going to be one of your favorites, but I think you have to put a star next to Henry Bennett as well. He's going to be one of the favorites with his performances in the past across the service on the road courses. When it comes to the organizations, I think it's going to be very difficult to try and stop Private Label Team Hype with their performance. All their drivers in the top 5, if they can keep up that consistency throughout the campaign, they're in a good spot.
So let's go down then to the HyperX victory lane and bring in our race winner, Adam Blocker, taking a very impressive victory here live at the Virtual Homestead Miami. And Adam, we had a fun time meeting up on Monday for the first time, but here you are back in your simulator. First lap's being put in today. Very good way to kick off your title defense. You're trying to go 4 titles in a row. What's going to be a rather impressive feat if you can make it happen over the next 21 races.
Yeah, that was a crazy race. Definitely didn't come into this race expecting to win. Not I always run well here, but I never seem to win and get the right opportunity. But yeah, didn't qualify very well, which I wasn't expecting to. Henry and Tony put in a decent amount of work to figure out what would work in qualifying. So credit to them for getting the team up there. But yeah, I was able to sort of pick my way through, guys, when the race started. Just keep out of trouble. There was a couple incidents I had to avoid. And yeah, it helped, like, some strong guys like Sage and Andrew had problems, and yeah, just played the pit strategy right. And then once I got up there near the front, I wanted to be in the top 2 to save my tires, and I had a nice little battle with Connor there. And my goal was to save my tires, and he was kind of scrubbing more than I was. And then by the time I got an opportunity, I just gave him some dirty air, and we got the separation. And luckily, we went green from there because that just made it easy.
Well, and you moved up an incredible 17 positions. What was it like on those restarts? Because I have to assume a lot of your positions gained were on those restarts, picking the right line, just finding momentum. And by the time we were on, I think it was the 4th restart, you were already up there in the top 5.
Yeah, the first restart, I didn't really have a good hang of it because I didn't put my tools in the right spot, but I kind of figured it out. You really had to adjust the tools to have the car right on the edge the whole stint. And I kind of figured that out. I had some sketchy moments doing that, but I survived it and worked out. So.
And final question before we let you go then, Adam. We mentioned it over the course of the broadcast. You've got real-world commitments in the IndyCar paddock to fulfill. What does that mean for your schedule? I already know that you've got some rather interesting plans to compete in Lionheart races when you're at the Brickyard for the month of May. How many races do you think you'll be able to make, and how many races are you already expecting to need to drop?
So there's 4 conflicts right now with the real life schedule. There could be more if postseason testing happens and conflicts, but right now I have 2 of them sorted, I think, when I'm in Indy. So yeah, I should be able to make all but 2 or 3, and even then, I'll try my best to make them if it's situation where I need points, so and if it's a close championship fight. So yeah, definitely gonna try my best to go for a championship, and no better way to start off than tonight's result. So
well, congratulations, Adam. We'll let you go off and celebrate then, and hopefully we'll see you next time at Long Beach.
Yep, see you guys then. Just want to thank the team for all the effort, and yeah, congratulate Henry on a P4 on debut. That's pretty cool, and yeah, everybody from Adrenaline, 5 cars in top 10 is pretty great. See you guys next time.
Very impressive start then for Adrenaline Motorsports, not trying to just defend that Drivers' Championship, trying to defend the Organization Championship as well. Next up, it's Connor Harrington, 2nd place in today's race. 12 months ago, he was a race winner, and Justin Prince is standing by.
Yes, indeed. Connor Harrington with a strong performance coming off that victory last season to start off the season, a P2 tonight, and a strong start for his organization for Tommy Miller and Ty Stover. First things first, Connor, how are you feeling about the podium finish tonight?
Yeah, I feel great. It was a really interesting race. Jason, Josh, and I, in the beginning, were controlling the pace from the front, and we just had, I guess, just a couple of small, really tiny miscues that allowed Adam to kind of get around us. But I mean, frankly, for a brand new organization, 2, 3, 5 in the championship to start I mean, I don't think we could have asked for a better night other than one of our cars being on the top of the podium, but I'm confident those results will come later on in the year.
Was going to say, what happened when Adam Blocker pulled away there? What was going on in that situation? Was it the fuel? Was it the dirty air?
Honestly, it was just the fact that I wanted to kind of make a concerted effort to make sure we get to the end. Adam was he was running the middle line down the front straightaway and really pinched me into turn one, and I didn't want to like send it and wreck him. And so I decided just to kind of like ride behind him, try to make a little bit of fuel, and just the dirty air and the tires really got to me, which is unfortunate. And I kind of slid backwards, and Jason and I had to kind of race it out there just a little bit. But the goal was to just try to stay with him and then undercut him and try to jump him at the pit stop, and we were just too far behind to do that.
Long Beach is up next. Your thoughts on going to the road course for the second race of the season?
I like Long Beach. I'm excited. We get the alternate compound for the one street course that Lionheart's done at Detroit. We had pretty good pace. I think I was second behind Adam there a couple seasons ago. So we're excited for it. It'll be a really tough test, but we're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for the time, Connor. Congratulations on the podium finish.
Yep, thanks.
So second place finisher Connor Harrington likes Homestead, it would appear. Winner 12 months ago. Second place today. Great way to start off another championship hunt. Let's dive into our final podium interview then. Jason Brophy, your highest finishing rookie in today's race. He's standing by with Justin Prince.
And Jason, you had a very stellar performance, led some laps at one point, in fact, I believe as well, 40 of them, in fact, for tonight. How are you feeling about your first race in the Lionheart IndyCar Series?
Happy to bring it home clean, get a good run for the private label Ethica team here. I think we did a very good job, qualified well, managed to keep ourselves up front for the most part. I know Chin had some problems mid-race, but rallied well, so I'm happy.
What do you feel you could have done differently to try and go from the third step of the podium to the first step of the podium tonight?
Not restarting fuel map 8 on the last restart. On the caution, not the last restart, but when I went from first to third, I think it was important to stay in that top two, because in third you just couldn't find just enough clean air to really get there, and I made the mistake of just focusing too much on the fact that it was going to be close on fuel and left it in fuel map 8. And so by the time we got to turn 1, they both had too big a run to do anything with. So just had to try and claw my way back up there, and I slowly did, but then made a mistake on pit road too. So, compounding little mistakes, nothing too major, but hurts a bit.
Now the next race goes to Long Beach. What is your team's focus going to be like to go on the road course for the first time as a group in this series?
I think Connor and Chin are excellent road course racers. I think their goal is going to be go out there and run right near the front. For me, it's going to be survive. I am more of an oval person, so I just need to salvage as many points on the ovals as I can for the team. And Long Beach is one of the ones I feel more comfortable at, so I hope I can go out there and run in the top 10, top 15, but we'll have to see. There's a lot of good drivers here, so.
Thank you very much for your time, Jason. Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thank you.
So that was Jason Brophy. Very impressive debut in the series to take home a podium. But Justin, before we go, let's wrap up just thinking about this next race. You talked about it with some of the drivers. We head to the virtual streets of Long Beach for what will be a very entertaining race. A couple of weeks, we get a 1-week break before we return for round 2 coverage. And you take a look at the rest of the schedule. One more street circuit, and then some very interesting road courses. Indy GP, Watkins Glen, Silverstone, Phillip Island, Road America, Mosport. They're all different. The only two that are somewhat similar are Long Beach and Belle Isle. So the performance from Long Beach will directly correlate in towards Belle Isle, and we'll be able to see which of our drivers has really improved over the course of this season.
It's going to be very telling, I think, absolutely, especially which drivers are going to be able to handle the tight confines of Long Beach. It's going to be a track where you have hard braking zones, you have to work your way around the fountain, as well as some long, high-speed sections that will allow for some potential dives to the inside. It's going to be tricky for those drivers, absolutely, but if you can find that balance, we may see one of those drivers that competed well tonight up on the top step of the podium. For others, like they said, like Jason Brophy in particular, it could be about survival.
So thank you for tuning in then live on RaceSpot TV and ESTV for opening round coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by Butt Kicker. Let's take the opportunity to thank the friends that have made this possible. First, Butt Kicker, your series sponsors. From sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in all of sim racing? For more information, visit www.thebuttkicker.com, and don't forget to use promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. Then the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, the makers of premier gaming gear, like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit www.hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off orders. The SimExperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimExperience ecosystem, visit www.simexperience.com. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit www.minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. And finally, looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins, avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. Finally, let's talk about all of the sponsors that have brought the Lionheart Racing Series to you live on RaceSpot TV. There's a whole team behind this competition, and you can head over to LionheartRacingSeries.com to check out all of the sponsors and more information about them. For now, though, it's time to wrap up. Justin, I do want to get your closing thoughts before we hand it on over to a post-race, rather to our colleagues who are going to now think about this race and race control. The race results are not final. They will have the opportunity to go back and reflect on them and adjust as needed. We saw a lot of incidents. Race control might be very busy.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one when it comes to some of the incidents. I think for some of the drivers, they're going to have to think about for the next oval how they play some of these moves, because there were some tight conference moves, some you would not expect in some cases in open wheel racing. So I think for some of the competitors, it's about trying to fix some of those mistakes and try and work on their attacking and work on their approach on when they try and make passes. But overall, a very solid race overall to start off the campaign with a lot of back and forth, especially the mid-pack.
And we'll return to the Virtual Homestead Miami tomorrow to kick off the Lionheart Retro Series. For now, though, we say goodbye. You can follow us for more esports action, not just at RaceBot TV, but across Lionheart Series and ESTV.co as well. But for now, on behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, my name is Arjuna Kenkipati, and I've been joined by the one and only Justin Prince for this first round of Lionheart competition. TV cameras provided to us by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22, with additional car cameras provided by RaceBot's own Tyler Maxson. Live timing and scoring provided by RaceBot's partners at timing71.org, where you can follow along with the best in the real and virtual worlds using their world-class suite of data analysis tools. We'll be back then tomorrow from Homestead for Lionheart Retro Series, but tune in 2 weeks from today for round 2, live from Long Beach, of the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by Butt Kicker. Thank you for tuning in to RaceBot TV or ESTV, and we'll hope to see you throughout the entirety of 60 events in Lionheart Racing Series this season. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you then tomorrow, and for the entire team at RaceBot, see you soon.